Well, what a day. FBI whistleblowers, DOJ doubts Epstein to Russiagate. Can justice rebound? Welcome to Christy Lee's DC Dispatch. Right now, President Trump is hosting President Marcos of the Philippines at the White House in a fiery Oval Office presser with Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. Trump declared it's time to go after political enemies like James Comey and Barack Obama, saying, after what they did to me, it's time to go after people. He's also pushing for stronger U.S.-Philippines ties amid China's growing influence. Coming up, Lindell TV's Ellison Steinberg will have highlights on that meeting and some Epstein updates. Also, don't miss FBI whistleblower Steve Friend. He's joining me to discuss disappointing DOJ developments. The Trump administration has been leading in D-class efforts. Another big reveal from Tulsi Gabbard as Director of National Intelligence. She's dropped 230,000 FBI files on the 1968 MLK assassination, including FBI investigation details, internal memos, and claims from James Earl Ray's cellmate about a possible plot. Gabbard says the American people have waited nearly 60 years to see the full scope of the federal government's investigation, but the King family urges caution, fearing misuse of the files to smear MLK's legacy. Not so with Alveda King. She calls the move a historic step toward the truth that the American people deserve, a victory for truth and accountability. We're also learning more about what's becoming known as Obamagate. Tulsi Gabbard's newly released Russiagate docs are fueling talk of a treasonous conspiracy, and the DOJ might be gearing up for a deeper probe. RV News reports House Speaker Mike Johnson is raising eyebrows, hinting at a possible subpoena for former President Barack Obama over claims he worked with intel agencies to link Trump to Russia in 2016, saying if it's uncomfortable for him, he shouldn't have been involved. The DOJ has confirmed it received a criminal referral from DNI Tulsi Gabbard against former President Barack Obama and his top officials for alleging manufacturing the Russia hoax to undermine Trump's 2016 win, according to Slay News. Gabbard says over 100 documents detail a treasonous conspiracy directed by Obama, and the DOJ is now reviewing evidence that could shake up the political landscape. No question Trump is taking aim at Obama. He truthed Obama himself manufactured the Russia hoax. Crooked Hillary, Sleepy Joe, and numerous others participated in this, the crime of the century. Irrefutable evidence, a major threat to our country. Revolver reports Tulsi Gabbard's latest docs indeed put former President Barack Obama dead center in the Russiagate scandal, with evidence suggesting he overruled reports downplaying Russian interference to push a fake narrative against Trump in 2016. Journalist Matt Taibbi says Obama is no longer a tertiary character in this scam, as the DOJ probes his top deputies, Comey and Brennan, raising questions about whether Obama himself could face a perp walk. But what about presidential immunity? Here's what Mike Davis has to say about that.
Presidential immunity covers his actions while he's the president of the United States. They don't cover his actions when he's the former president of the United States and when he's participating in the cover-up of this conspiracy, then he doesn't have presidential immunity.
A new CIA review reveals that top intelligence officials told then CIA Director John Brennan there was no evidence to support the claim that Russia wanted Trump to win in 2016, but Brennan overruled them, pushing the narrative anyway, according to the Federalist. One official said, "We have no intelligence to directly support this, quote, aspiration point." Yet Brennan insisted on including it in the 2017 intelligence community assessment, fueling the Russia hoax. Will this now lead to the blame game for some CYA? Here's what Victor Davis Hanson opines.
Well, I think it's pretty clear they're going to have written evidence and probably testimonials from these so-called great intelligence authorities at the level below Clapper and Brennan. And that's going to be damning. And the only mystery, Laura, is whether Barack Obama will say that Clapper and Brennan overread the assessment and misled him, or whether he, Clapper and Brennan, say that Obama misled them. But otherwise, everything is pretty clear. The other problem is none of these people have any credibility. James Comey pled ignorance, amnesia 245 times under oath to this House Intelligence Committee. He leaked a confidential conversation with Donald Trump that he memorialized to the New York Times via a third party. Clapper, remember, he lied under oath to Congress, and he said that the NSA did not spy on people. Then when he was caught, he said it was the least untruthful answer he could give. Brennan lied twice. He said that the NSA didn't spy on people, lie. He said that the CIA didn't tap in to Senate staffer computers. That was a lie. Both of them were co-architects, let's not forget, of the 51 intelligence authorities. So you could really say, as a historian, a historical period, they affected the outcome one way or the other of the 2016 election and maybe the 2020, because they leaked that false narrative of Donald Trump colluding with the Russians to manufacture Hunter's laptop right before the second debate, and to arm Joe Biden to go in there and lie to the American people that his son's laptop was a product of Russian and Trump collusion. So they've got a long record of no credibility, and I don't think they're going to be convincing in any excuse or apology they give.
Victor Davis Hanson bringing all those receipts. Meanwhile, Comey, under the crosshairs, is crying about his daughter getting fired. Watch.
The reservoir is in grave danger right now. Trump and the hacks who lead the Department of Justice are hammering at the dam day after day, trying to turn it into just another gold leaf covered Trump subsidiary. Our best hope is that good people will stay and do what Maureen asked. Have the courage to do the right thing always. You may get fired for acting that way, but there's honor in that, and nothing but disgrace for those who don't stand up. There are going to be hard weeks in the Trump era, and this was one for my family. But there are plenty of good people still in the department committed to doing things the right way, committed to the rule of law. For them,
oh, they're committed to something. Legacy media is responding to Comey's bat signal with ridiculous headlines like this. An accuser's story suggests how Trump might appear in the Epstein files. Unbelievable. Not even worth going over that because it's all suggests, might. How is this news? What is weird is the GOP delaying the Epstein vote. House Speaker Mike Johnson announced there won't be a vote on a resolution to release Jeffrey Epstein files before the August recess, despite some GOP pushback and Trump's order to unseal grand jury transcripts. Johnson said, "We're in line with the White House. There's no daylight between us, giving the administration time to act." But Democrats and some Republicans like Thomas Massie, they're fuming, demanding transparency. And right now, Lindell TV's Allison Steinberg has further updates on Epstein. But first, some of these hot topics, they got hit in the meeting with the president of the Philippines. That must have been a little strange. Allison, what have you for us as far as that meeting goes?
Hey, Christy. Yes, it was another eventful meeting here at the White House as the president sat down with the president of the Philippines, President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. Lots was discussed. As usual, the president gave the press the opportunity to ask a myriad of questions. And President Trump was asked about what the DOJ's priorities should be at this point in time. And it was amazing. Trump totally flipped the script on this reporter and put him in his place, urging the press to cover issues that actually matter, like this. Take a listen.
The witch hunt that you should be talking about is they caught President Obama absolutely cold, Tulsi Gabbard. What they did to this country in 2016, starting in 2016, but going up to 2020 in the election. They tried to rig the election, and they got caught. And there should be very severe consequences for that. You know, when we caught Hillary Clinton, I said, you know what? Let's not go too far here. It's the ex-wife of a president, and I thought it was sort of terrible. And I let her off the hook, and I'm very happy I did. But it's time to start, after what they did to me, and whether it's right or wrong, it's time to go after people. Obama's been caught directly. So people say, oh, you know, a group. It's not a group. It's Obama. His orders are on the paper. The papers are signed. The papers came right out of their office. They sent everything to be highly classified. Well, the highly classified's been released. And what they did in 2016 and in 2020 is very criminal. It's criminal at the highest level. So that's really the things you should be talking about.
But of course they won't. I mean, they have their marching orders from the left, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. They will, spin the news and perpetuate the fake stories as long as they can, because that is what they're here to do. It's amazing to me that anyone still tunes into that garbage, but I guess it gives us something to talk about and make fun of, right? So that's always fun. It actually didn't end there, though, because Trump proceeded to name names. He was really hot on this topic of the stolen, rigged election, and he actually listed who was responsible for it. I'm sure his response here won't be much of a shock, but I did think it was a great clip. So take a listen to this one, too.
No, Barack Hussein Obama is the ringleader. Hillary Clinton was right there with him, and so was Sleepy Joe Biden, and so were the rest of them. Comey, Clapper, the whole group. And they tried to rig an election, and they got caught. And then they did rig the election in 2020. And then because I knew I won that election by a lot, I did it a third time, and I won in a landslide. Every swing state won the popular vote. But I won that all the same way in 2020. And look at the damage that was caused.
He's exposing the real insurrectionists, right?
Yes, that's right. And I love that he very specifically called him Barack Hussein Obama. I thought that was a very nice touch, and hopefully the fake news takes note of that. So all good stuff there. It was a good meeting with the president of the Philippines. I guess they did come out with a trade deal that the president is happy with. He posted that to True Social. So all good things there. But I know the hot topic of the day is also the Epstein stuff, which the saga continues. It sounds like there's been a major development as of this morning. Deputy Attorney General, Todd Blanche, put out a statement this morning that was reposted by Pam Bondi. If we have that, we can throw it up. I did want to read it because they are now saying that at the direction of the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, Todd Blanche has communicated with the counsel for Ms. Maxwell to determine whether she would be willing to speak with prosecutors from the department. He anticipates meeting now with Ms. Maxwell in the coming days. Until now, no administration on behalf of the department had inquired about her willingness to meet with the government. That is changing now. So this is a huge development. They are actually going to be meeting with her for the first time ever. I guess this insinuates that no one's ever met with her before, which is pretty astounding considering she would, probably be the star key witness in all of this. So amazing that no one's spoken with her up until now, I guess. But I just find the timing of this very interesting. And I guess this, is quite telling and alludes to the fact that, nothing's ever been done by now. It's interesting to see this come out and that Trump wouldn't have been more clear and bold about this before. It's sort of weird how this has all been unveiled, but I do think that it's good they're going to be talking to her. I just think it's interesting that's just happening now for the first time.
Yeah. I think the question many of us have, if there's nothing to see here, if your memo was confident in that, how did you get to that conclusion before talking to one of the main characters of this drama?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, what was it, a couple weeks ago? They told us, there was nothing more to see here, case closed. Trump even started concerning a lot of the MAGA base by sort of lambasting us, saying that we needed to drop this. It's just a Democrat hoax. Well, he could have just come forward and said, there's actually never been an interview conducted with Ghislaine Maxwell, and we're going to do that now. So not to fear. But I don't know, the way that all of this has unfolded has just been very strange. I'm glad we're getting some more answers. And I think it just goes to show how effective the public pressure campaign is. The MAGA was very upset by this. We did not like the answers that we were given, and so now we put the pressure on, and we're actually perhaps going to get some results here. So that is good news. In other really good news, the Wall Street Journal has been removed from the press pool. I think this is a very exciting stuff. Unfortunately, it only appears to apply to the president's weekend trip that is upcoming to Scotland. But I thought it'd be great to, axe them entirely from the White House. That'd be really nice. But, of course, this comes as Trump is suing the Wall Street Journal for their fake news story that they put out about Trump giving some really strange birthday card to Epstein. Of course, this was an effort to smear him and malign his character. It's fake, so now he's suing them. But it's amazing. The Democrats say this attempt by the White House to punish media outlets is infringing on their First Amendment rights. I just thought that was really rich because wasn't it a couple of years ago when the very same people censored and silenced us for opposing what they told us we had to believe and and perpetuate. So anyway, I thought that was funny.
And they're the same people that have no problem in their elitist flair trying to argue that people like you, people like us here at Lindell TV, don't have a right to a seat there in the press briefing. So it's all relative to whatever is good for them. And, you know, there's no morality or sticking points that, you know, that they actually adhere to. It's all very malleable. But as far as this lawsuit against Wall Street Journal, it's going to be interesting to watch. My prediction is the Wall Street Journal will push to have this dismissed in some way or settle, because they do not want discovery. I'm sure. I know you and I have talked about the connections perhaps even between those who are behind pushing this story, this birthday letter story, actually being some of the same characters that were behind the Steele dossier, which is wild. Susan Crabtree had that nugget to share with a lot of us. And so discovery could be really interesting if it gets to that point.
Yeah, it certainly could be. I think it would be great for all of us to see. I don't think they want it to get there. So probably, yeah, we'll do whatever they can to avoid that. But yeah, it's amazing. All of these nefarious characters are tied together. It's no surprise that, you know, they've all colluded together for quite some time to, you know, push these ridiculous narratives and try to interfere with and undermine President Trump and his America First agenda. So it is truly incredible to see this all coming to light now. I just hope that we finally get to see the arrest that we've all been eagerly awaiting. So I guess time will tell on that. Hopefully it's not too much longer. But you mentioned it earlier, Christy, the House voting on the release of the Epstein files. They actually met last night to vote on the release of the files. House Republicans are now in no rush to force a vote on this. Of course, all Democrats are, with the addition of Thomas Massey, the only Republican to want this to get out there immediately. I think it's funny. Thomas Massey, what a character. I mean, I agree with him on so many things. This is another one. I don't know what the right move is. It sounds like the DOJ actually is, you know, making moves here, and perhaps the right moves, perhaps a, you know, parallel case with Congress is effective too. I don't know how all that, you know, merges together, but I think, you know, it could be good. Thomas Massey, though, is not missing any opportunities to troll. He actually left Congress earlier this morning with a Phase 2 Epstein binder. Let's take a look at this clip.
I was wondering, with the paralysis in the Rules Committee, it seems like they're not going to be meeting again today because of Epstein amendments. Have you chatted with anybody about that at this point?
Well, it wouldn't really matter. Their Epstein bill resolution is non-binding, so it's kind of fake. The resolution that I have co-sponsored with Ro Khanna would actually bring up legislation that would be binding on the president.
Is your understanding that that will ripen the day after lawmakers get back from August recess?
Yeah, unfortunately, we have 6 days and we needed 7 days for the discharge petition to ripen before we could bring this up before the August recess. So we'll have to bring it up after the August recess. But the good news is the Speaker has no interest in keeping us here one extra day.
This is totally off topic, but is it just me? But is Thomas Massey totally going for a different look? Looks like he's going for this like
It looks
new
like
look.
it.
He's ditched the glasses. He's growing out his hair. He's got the scruff going. I'm like, what's going on with Massey right now?
I was thinking the same thing, and then I remembered that he's now dating Christina Pushaw, apparently. So maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know, but I did notice the change in his look there.
Rebel Massey.
Maybe he's just drinking a bunch of raw milk.
Yeah, well, it does your body good. It does.
It does.
It's funny though how this whole thing is his again flipped. Man, the two parties, it's just anything to be opposite from one another. It was always Republicans that were saying, why haven't we gotten onto that? When it mattered, actually, when we were closer to the crime, like that is when it mattered. And the Democrats were silent. And we even have had Hakeem Jeffries coming out and admitting to that. Like, well, yeah, it wasn't on our priority list before, but now, I mean, it's all such a joke. But yes, hopefully we're inching closer to something.
Hopefully, yeah. It is amazing. The Democrats only care when, Trump is trying to, I guess, sweep it under the rug. At least he was at one point in time. They've had years and years to unpack this and do what they wanted to. And it wasn't until now that they just decided to get active on it. So it certainly is interesting how it's all been unfolding. Thomas Massie, of course, being the only Republican to side with the Democrats, too. We had initially heard from Ralph Norman, who I adore, and he's one of my favorite members of Congress. I talk to him very regularly, and he was very much in favor of releasing these immediately. However, now he's taken a new stance on that. I would love to talk with him and understand why that's happening. Maybe there's something going on behind the scenes we don't know about. But yes, Thomas Massie siding with the Democrats. Very interesting how this often seems to pan out these days. But also with that, too, the House is now in recess until September. So they're out for an entire month. So that must be nice to get a month off work. Really working hard for the American people.
And yet we always laud them as public servants with a lot of vacation time.
Right.
You mentioned earlier about this interview with Ghislaine. So I thought it was interesting that the Daily Mail came up with this article that was really pushing that Maxwell is not suicidal, and she's trying to make that clear. I mean, it's no joke anymore if you are involved in something as divisive and bombshell as this, that you have to be like, just, not suicidal. And her other inmates are speaking to that. I mean, especially in light of the super strange way that Virginia Giuffre, one of the star witnesses in this whole Epstein thing, suddenly committed suicide after she said she would not commit suicide. So, very, very, very fishy, and good for her, I guess, for just putting it out there that she's not suicidal, right?
Yeah, good for her. I'm glad she, is beginning to speak out on this. I did read this article. I thought it was really interesting. Her cellmate had quite a bit to say about Ghislaine, who just so happens to be a 42-year-old tranny, by the way. She says Ghislaine mostly keeps to herself. She says she is, just trying to finish out her 20-year sentence for her sex trafficking charges. The cellmate said that she has brought up on her own case a number of times. Only made one mention of Epstein, and she said the DOJ had no interest in her until after Jeffrey. So I don't know. She says the cellmate says that Ghislaine has been mostly hush-hush on this. She doesn't really talk unless spoken to, and even then she's still fairly reserved. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens, especially now that the DOJ will be speaking with her. I'm sure there'll be no shortage of interesting stuff coming out of this in the very near future. So I'm excited for that.
A lot of the MAGA base, like if you're checking on social media, you would think that has been lost on this. So they're so disgusted with the about face, the lack of transparency. But it's interesting that Scott Jennings of CNN says, that's not necessarily the case. So let's hear what he has to say.
I agree with the part of what Chuck said. Midterms are about base motivation. He's completely right about that. And right now, Democrats, and Republicans have sort of flipped in terms of who's got the more committed voters, or frequent voters, I should say. But in terms of what the base is doing with Donald Trump right now, they support him on Iran. It's not true. They do support him on Ukraine, because what he's done is he's put NATO in the middle of this, and it's not U.S. tax dollars, it's European countries. The base is with Donald Trump. In fact, it is true. His numbers among Republicans continue to rise. They couldn't go up much higher because they're so good already. But the base is with Trump. Regardless of whatever is roiling or, boiling in the political seas out there, you can't deny his numbers among his voters, his Republican voters, are higher than they've ever been.
So, I guess all these other wins are kind of balancing things out in the meantime. And, there's many, I guess, that are just continue to have faith that he knows what he's doing, that there's a time and a place for this information to come out. And I guess we're just not there yet.
Yeah, I think so. And I've gone back and forth on this myself a number of times since all the Epstein stuff started unfolding. Initially, it had me fairly angry. Then, I started to think more about this, Democrat hoax thing that Trump eventually said later, and thought, maybe there's something to this. The Democrats have had access, and they've had control of these files for how long. Perhaps they could have altered and manipulated whatever's left of these files to their liking, right? That wouldn't be out of the question. And so I feel like I've, gone on this trajectory of initially being upset to now being like, oh, maybe Trump is being truthful about this and we should just trust him. I don't know. I think the MAGA base largely has been a little bit skeptical of the whole Epstein situation, but now, we're seeing some progress there. So I think we do need to just give it a little bit more time and see what actually pans out. And then if we're let down, then we could be upset. Let's just not jump the gun a little too early, I guess.
Well, if that is the case, if there was manufacturing of evidence manipulation, well, then now we're being prepped for that, because we're seeing that with the Russiagate, the evidence that is being brought forward to show the conspiracy to manufacture evidence. And so it would align with that being the case. Either way, thank you so much, Allison. I know you have so much more to cover as you flit about DC, and thank you so much for taking up the truth there.
Thank you so much, Christy.
You bet. Coming up, we're going to hear from an FBI whistleblower. You knew him, Steve Friend. We are really interested in what he thinks of all these DOJ happenings. There's a lot of doubt in the DOJ right now. A lot of people being like, yeah, but nothing will be done. We'll see what he thinks as someone that was in that swamp pre-Trump administration. And has it changed enough? I don't know. These are all the questions we need to ask our friend, Steve Friend, the FBI whistleblower. But first, a quick word from our friends who make this programming possible. And I'll be right back.
Whether it's being a weekend warrior or spending time with your family, feeling your best is the key to doing the things you love. That's why I'm excited to tell you about Nirvanta. It's a natural solution designed to help you stay active and live well naturally. Nirvanta is a topical blend of all natural essential oils like frankincense, myrrh, and a proprietary gold standard plant stock extract. It's perfect for your hands, feet, knees, back, or anywhere else that needs a little extra care. Use Nirvanta proactively as part of your daily maintenance routine, and you're guaranteed you're going to feel the difference. Simply massage Nirvanta in for at least 60 seconds, 2 to 3 times a day to get the best results. And if you're not completely satisfied, you get your money back. No questions asked. There's simply no risk and no reason not to try Nirvanta today. Right now, you get 15% off with code Lindell exclusively at nirvantahealth.com. So stop reaching out for that medicine cabinet. Get Nirvanta instead and experience the difference. Go to nirvantahealth.com. Use code Lindell to get 15% off today. Nirvanta Health. Live well naturally.
DC Dispatch, lots of promises made. The Russiagate exposure gives some hope that the DOJ will actually hold criminals accountable, but you really cannot blame anyone for having their doubts, especially when you look at how DOJ whistleblowers have been treated when trying to shine sunlight on corruption. Here to weigh in on this, on the doubting the DOJ, is Steve Friend, an FBI whistleblower, fellow podcast host, author, and so much more. He brings his more than decade of experience in law enforcement to share analysis on current events. And according to Ben Shapiro, he should be rolling in millions of dollars by now. Watch this exchange between Megyn Kelly and Ben Shapiro.
I'm saying they should name themselves, because otherwise they are being complicit in one of the greatest cover-ups in the history of the American
Republic.
That's easy for you to say,
Ben. That's very easy for you to say.
Why is that easy for me to say? Why?
Because you'll have your job and you'll have your millions, no matter what they do.
Megyn, give me a break. If somebody came out today and they were a whistleblower on the greatest scandal in the history of the American Republic, they would make more money tomorrow than in their entire life working for the FBI. That's ridiculous.
Okay. There are reasons not to cross the people who are in charge. And that's all I'm going to say.
So let's bring Steve Friend in, FBI whistleblower. As we just heard, you must be rolling in the dough because you were a whistleblower and were courageous. And according to Ben Shapiro, that just means you're making millions.
No, that Shapiro slush fund has no bottom. I'm like Scrooge McDuck swimming in gold. Or by contrast, I just 2 nights ago received a nice email rejecting me for an overnight security job that would have paid $18 an hour and required a GED and the ability to stand on your feet.
Unbelievable. I mean, it's enraging, truly enraging that you and your buddies, Garrett O'Boyle and Kyle Serafin and others, are still being ignored, or worse, having a hard time getting work. So, I mean, there's that. That is so enraging, especially enraging to see somebody like Ben Shapiro make that claim when they're saying perhaps we're not being told everything about what we need to be being told, how perhaps we're not being transparent. But let's start with those that are making millions or have made millions, and that's the conspirators. I noticed that you had shared that as far as the information coming out of Russiagate, that it was revealed that certain people made millions, and they were Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, right?
Absolutely. I mean, this goes back to a settlement that the DOJ was able to get done with Peter Strzok, Lisa Page. I believe Pete got $1.2 million and Lisa got $800,000. And the premise of this lawsuit that they filed was that there was an invasion of their privacy because when they were sexting with each other on a government phone in which you have no expectation of privacy, those messages became public. And they then brought lawsuit forward when you had a Joe Biden as president, Merrick Garland as the attorney general, and the communists are nothing if they don't reward their friends and punish their enemies. Peter Strzok, Lisa Page were good and faithful servants. So although they were removed from duty, they found some nice places to land for themselves, and they got a nice payout from the Department of Justice, which means they got a nice payout from the American taxpayers for things that were not illegal.
Now, when I wanted to get your feeling on what is being revealed by Tulsi Gabbard, declassifying more information. Really, she's calling this treasonous. A lot of the information, though, if you were paying attention to the right people, many of us already knew. So this is kind of like an Epstein point too, where we're said, check out all this information. It was like, oh, I actually kind of already knew all of this. What is your thought on that? And obviously, people are saying like, yeah. But we're not going to see anything done about it. How are you feeling?
Yeah, you can put me firmly in that latter category. And look, I think that they fumbled on Epstein very badly, and they are grasping for a victory any way that they can. And they're trying to get off of the spotlight, get off of the X when it comes to the accusations that are all surrounding the Epstein matter. And this is the risk that you run when you tell people who are very concerned about the sexual assault of children. And more importantly, I think, is the question of a two-tiered system of justice, one for the elite and one for the rest of us. And that question is never answered. The DOJ sort of votes present rather than taking that up. You've effectively taken a mountainous concern and told us that it's a molehill. It's not something that we should be concerned with and we should just move on. And the risk to that is that we can turn around and flip the script on you. And then when you're bragging about how great the economy is, or we're going to go after other people, then we can always be dismissive of that and say, but you did not take up our concern, which was ultimately the question of, do we have this two-tiered system? Now, for this new revelations, they're not really new. If you're paying attention at all to guys like Lee Smith, Tracy Beans, and others who have been on these matters for years now, almost a decade, this is not new information. I think that it does raise, again, the question of the two-tiered system of justice, but I'm also concerned that we're going to try to pivot. We're going to throw out some red meat to the base, scratch the belly of that id, and say things like Obama and Comey and Biden, and just throw these names out there, and people get their hopes up with it, and they're hoping to maybe just wait it out, get to the summer, get to the fall football season, holiday season, and then bam, we're back into the midterms. And you take Mark Levin the other night in his discussions on his television program saying, well, we just need to move on from Epstein because, as he told Mike Johnson, we just got elections to win. So I am more sanguine, I think, than most on this matter because I'm still waiting for accountability across the board on basically any question. Where is the person in government who abused their position and their authority and their power to go after their political enemies and to personally enrich themselves? Not one, and we are now 6 months into this administration, more than enough time to bring forward a lawful, judicious investigation. Not one has been indicted and brought into any sort of custody.
It's really hard for someone like me, I'm totally on the outside, to understand what in the heck is going on. I used to listen to Bongino quite frequently. To my knowledge, he had some of you guys on. This seemed to be a priority of his, and then nothing. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. Do you have any theories of why this has been ignored? Why you guys haven't been offered reinstatements? I mean, it just blows my mind. I just don't get it. Do you have any insight?
Well, I mean, my attorneys have been in conversations in back rooms with representatives of Congress, with the Department of Justice, and parenthetically with the FBI. There's been some very disturbing comments that have been made and just sort of head scratching, where suddenly all of us who came forward for the right reason at the right time in the right way, we all suddenly have character issues, which was something that was messaged really hard on social media. I kept seeing that pop up, that term come around with people who are reliable mouthpieces for people in the Department of Justice and the FBI, which means that it's just not organic. It's pretty much astroturfed at this point. I think that it does eventually send a chilling effect. It sends a message that regardless of who is in charge, the worst thing you can do is embarrass the FBI, and they want to dissuade individuals from coming forward and bringing their concerns and not coming out on your show or on social media, but actually bringing forward concerns to Congress and the Inspector General's office, or even just your immediate supervisor and superiors. Like, that's the law. That's what whistleblowers are about. And they don't want that concern. They want good and faithful servants who just put their head down and do what they're told, just follow orders. And take no greater example than when Kash Patel, Dan Bongino did a nice sit down on Fox News, that first one they did together. And the question was about Stephen Jensen, who was the J6 warlord. He was a section chief over domestic terrorism operations section. He was the architect of the way that the FBI went after J6ers. He has now been promoted multiple times, once underneath Kash Patel and Dan Bongino. He is the assistant director in charge of the Washington field office. And they took quite a bit of umbrage for being criticized with that. And Director Patel made a remark effectively saying that he raised concerns, Stephen Jensen, about what was going on. But at the end of the day, he just followed orders. And that is what the American people should want. And that is not what the American people sent a mandate for last November. That's not what anybody should want from law enforcement officers who actually swear an oath to protect, defend the Constitution, protect their fellow citizen against fraud and force. And if they see that their agency is off the rails, they are duty bound to throw the flag and raise the alarms, because it is never acceptable to just file all orders that are out of step with the Constitution, the law, ethics, and morality.
And that's what's such a huge head scratcher for me, and I'm sure many others, because speaking of character, I guess I'll just speak for myself. I would never have thought that someone like Dan Bongino or Kash Patel would have the character to be like that. Like, I would have expected them to be like, no, you always got to do the right thing, not like Comey says to do the right thing, but like the actual right thing, and would scoff at this leadership problem. But it's interesting to me because the agencies aren't the only ones that have had leadership problems. I mean, this has been addressed in the military, and I really enjoyed watching Pete Hegseth bring in Stu Scheller, who I've interviewed multiple times as well, who spoke out and received a lot of flack for it and punishment for it in the military. Now he's been brought in to address those problems of leadership in the military, the error in promotion. So let me play a clip from their announcement and get your reaction to this on the other side.
America's sons and daughters who serve in our military deserve the best leaders commanding them, which is why we need to reform the promotion system at DoD, how we get those leaders. We're proud that Brigadier General Anthony Tata has just been confirmed as our Undersecretary of Defense for Personnel and Readiness. His predecessor, Jay Hurst, signed a memo tasking the services to support reforms that I've asked my friend, Stu Scheller, you know him, to recommend changes by looking at the entirety of the selection and retention process for our military's officer corps. And that includes training in professional military education, officer evaluations, promotions, and command selections. And Stu, thanks for doing this for us, man.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it.
How we reform the force and identify talent, I think, is one of the most important things we can do, sir. So I believe this initiative is something that is going to lead us to victory in the next war. And to you, sir, I appreciate the honor of serving in your administration, but I'm not going to rest. I'm not going to stay quiet. And I'm going to keep fighting until we get this right, because people
You get the point. So basically, you know, he's one that went viral for coming and speaking out, and it wasn't something he was allowed to do, but he had the bravery to speak out with problems in the military, and now he's actually been brought in to to do something that he's passionate about and fix the promotion. And it sounds like there's parallels to me as far as how this promotion things work up. Like you either suck up to about who's above you to get those promotions, or, you know, suck up and shut up essentially. And that's not how it should go in the military nor in these agencies, right?
No, it shouldn't. It should be completely merit-based. But look, I can only speak from my own perspective here, working for a federal agency like the FBI. Anybody who wants to get promoted just never says no to a bad idea, or they invent a solution and then look for a problem to apply it to. There's a revolving door of people who really don't have a lot of subject matter expertise, particularly in federal law enforcement, because of the weird quirks that are involved with the age and mandatory retirement. So if you want to actually ascend to the upper echelons of the pyramid of the FBI in the managerial structure, you have to devote enough time to get there. So that process has to start very early in your careers, which is why if you look at the resume of just about everybody who's on the 7th floor of the Hoover building, they have less than 6 years of actual investigative experience. And that's when they started their promotion, 18 months back to headquarters and then back to the field, and 18 months back to headquarters and then back to the field. And by the field, for most of these people, it's Washington, D.C., Richmond, maybe Baltimore. So they're never really leaving the swamp. And those are the people that surrounded Dan Bongino, surrounded Kash Patel the day that they walked in and started whispering sweet nothings into their ear and completely bubble wrapped them from actually carrying forward the mission. So the director of the FBI sets the vision, and the deputy director is supposed to implement it. But if you listen to their media hits, they will talk all about being briefed up on the most high priority important cases that are going on in the FBI. That is not their job. That to me indicates that they are being distracted from doing their job of breaking the status quo, shifting the paradigm, putting the priorities where they need to go. And instead they're listening to people who are preying on their vulnerabilities, their concerns that, oh, if we don't know the very intimate details of every single case, then Washington, D.C. might explode. Or something happened in New York. And look, just for your information, for your audience's information, the FBI director is 14 levels above the agent who is working a case. That's a huge bureaucracy. There is no information that a director is going to get that he's then going to turn around and send 14 levels back down to the case agent with a recommendation. You have to trust in the people who you're saying are the new Avengers, the good men and women of the FBI. And I have my issues with that term. With the cops, and again, I have my issues with that term. But if that's what you truly believe, let them do their job. And sir, do yours and recast a vision and get this agency back on the track where it's actually combating crime and not still involved in intelligence collection and looking for opportunities to get its name in the newspaper and to entrap people into these terrorist plots that are completely farcical so that they can get more funding next year.
It just, again, it boggles the mind. And I mean, if it boggles my mind and is maddening and really stomach turning for me to think back on what Kash Patel and Dan Bongino used to say, like talking about how, you know, they just needed to basically start over, like, or possibly obliterate it, turn the headquarters into a museum. I mean, and then see just this about face. It's beyond comprehension. And it's just, how do you handle seeing this happen?
It's been definitely disappointing because I was very excited about both of their elevations to the positions that they're in. I took them at their word when they went in. That was their intention. And I think in pretty short order, the people that are there are very proficient. They're not proficient investigators. They're not good agents because they haven't been doing that work for a long time. I mean, I have more experience than most people in the upper echelons at actually putting bad guys in jail. But they're very good at kissing up and bubble wrapping and insulating leadership so that they can just let things go back to normal. And I think that there are some issues that could be addressed immediately for all the people that are saying, well, we got to wait 6 to 8 months. And by that, I'm always taking it as, 6 to 8 months. So 628 months, I guess, is going to be a proper waiting period for these things to happen. Look, we could have moved the headquarters. Now they've moved it 3 blocks down the street, and they're going to retain at least 4,000 agents there. Well, Kash Patel said he needed 20 people in a skiff. Apparently, he was off by 2 orders of magnitude times 2 on that one. But in reality, things that we could do are shatter the intelligence collection. Because of the Executive Order 12333 that Obama signed on his way out the door, the FBI gets unfettered access to the NSA's hoovering up of signals intelligence of all Americans, and they can open up assessments on anyone for any articulable purpose. That should have gone away forthwith. We need to be empowering local law enforcement agencies to actually drive the ship forward. And this might seem radical, but I think it makes a lot of sense, particularly in the historical context. We need to really have a legitimate conversation about taking the guns away from the FBI. It started as a Bureau of Investigation, an investigative arm of the DOJ without weapons. Let them carry forward effective investigations, but force them to partner with the real gun toters, the real cops, the sheriff deputies, the police officers, tribal police, state troopers, all of those people. And then therefore, we put the ball in their court, the people, the doctor and the lesser magistrate, who are more accountable to local people. Because if the sheriff doesn't bring crime down, he loses his job. If the FBI sees crime go up, they get an enhanced budget. It's fundamentally opposite of what you want from a law enforcement agency. So if we're actually empowering the sheriff to say, hey, look, I'm not going to go arrest Christie because she went on a guided tour of the Capitol and didn't break anything and didn't break any laws, but I do have a problem with Trende Aragua invading this little street corner here and selling drugs. Why don't we devote resources to that? That to me makes a lot more sense, and that would actually be an effective partnership between the federal government and the locals, because that's how true Republican, small r, government works.
Yeah, absolutely. Such great points. And then when you're talking about all these people that they're retaining, you know, I did play that clip of Comey. It seems like anytime Comey puts a statement out, he's almost sending a signal, like, to those, you know, they're still trying to do the right things, like, don't stop, even if it gets you fired, blah, 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 blah. I mean, that to me tells me either there is still so much swampy characters in there that he's truly sending a signal to, or he's like kind of playing a bluff. I don't know, but what do you make of that when you see him say those things?
Well, colloquially, the individuals who were the sycophants for James Comey were called the College of Cardinals within the FBI, because they had the same vibe that he likes to project out there, that he is just beyond reproach, holier than thou, sanctimonious, he's of the utmost honor. The guy's a jerk. Right? He's now selling his romance novels or whatever he's doing. I don't take anything he says seriously, but he's red meat to the base. So people want to hear about Comey. And I think the people who are insiders, who are pretty dedicated to the James Comey, are aware of that fact. And they know that he's outside the statute of limitations on any of these sort of allegations. And they know that he's not gettable. He's too slick for that. But they're just going to say to Dan Bongino, let me show you the James Comey room. And the question never comes up, though, from Dan or from Cash. Well, what other rooms are you not showing me? Why are you being controlled and contrived and showing me just a little bit of things that are just not quite gettable? And I'd have to go no further than who replaced James Comey permanently? Christopher Wray. I don't hear his name mentioned at all. And the same people that were devoted to James Comey immediately pivoted to Chris Wray. Chris Wray is gettable. Chris Wray, we know for a fact, perjured himself. That was revealed in the last couple of days, particularly about school board meetings, where the FBI and the Department of Justice devoted national security resources to investigating parents for exercising their First Amendment rights at school board meetings. Chris Wray lied about that. Look, I testified to Matt Gaetz in front of the Weaponization Committee about this very fact. I was deployed to do surveillance of school board meeting parking lots and document license plates so that we could connect them to January 6th and ergo call them white supremacists. And Christopher lied to Congress about that. That is perjury. That's a gettable person. That's within the 5-year statute of limitations. I think we need to rethink, and we can do more than one thing. We can do more than just throw out Brennan and Clapper and Comey, guys that, you know, I know it's a pipe dream and I'd like it pursued, but let's be realistic. I don't think that we're going to actually see those guys in a orange jumpsuit. Chris Wray, though, absolutely gettable, and he's just as accountable, if not worse. Look, all the whistleblowing activity that went on during the Biden administration was during Chris Wray's leadership of the FBI. That includes the school board meetings, that includes January 6th, that includes the radical traditional Catholic intelligence product, all of that under his tenure, and all of it that he verifiably lied, and he needs to be held to account.
Such a great point. And somebody needs to take this talking point, because really this is becoming a crisis of trust. People, if they want any credibility, if they want any support moving forward, they need to earn back trust from the American people and listen to people like you on, here's something you could do that could at least help your reputation right now, because people are really beat down with this. They're sick of being told to be patient. But speaking of being patient, thank you for your patience in this interview. I know I need to wrap up with you. Steve Friend, I really want to encourage people to get your book, My Journey from Beat Cop to Suspended FBI Whistleblower, True Blue. You can find that on Amazon. Please get his book. Buy this book. Buy this book. I mean, this guy is having a hard time getting a security job, thanks to even our current DOJ. So purchase this book. And then how else can we support you, Steve?
Well, myself and Garrett O'Boyle, another FBI whistleblower, we do a podcast together called the American Radicals Podcast, which you can find on Rumble, rumble.com/amradpod. And it's also available on iTunes, Spotify, and iHeart. It's got a nice little image from Hamilton, except instead of a musket, he has an AR-15.
I love that. Perfect. So yes, please support Garrett O'Boyle, Steve Friend, and the other suspendables because they're not getting the support they deserve right now. And it's up to us to do that. So thank you again, Steve.
You got it. Have a good day.
You too. I mean, this is a guy that stood up for parents at the school. I was at those school board meetings. Little did I know that people were possibly writing my license plate number. Maybe that's why I was searched so viciously when I went to the airport. Who knows? But it was thanks to the bravery of people like Steve Friend to draw attention to this, that our intelligence agencies were being abused. And we need to see change yesterday. I want to trust the current DOJ, the Trump administration DOJ. I want to trust them. I loved Dan Bongino. I loved listening to him. I thought he had a great show. Kash Patel, I thought he was great. I hate that I have to doubt what is going on, what is being done to them, what's being held over their head, how they're being manipulated. I hate that. So we got to turn this thing around. All right. I want to hit some news on the economy, but first I just want to encourage you, while you're buying Steve Friend's book, perhaps you can also go to mypillow.com/KL and use promo code KL to support this show so that we can have people like Steve Friend on to talk. So that we can continue to amplify these voices. And we do that because thanks to Mike Lindell and his passion for truth, his passion for getting the news about elections security out there, news like this. We have the freedom to talk about this, no matter which side of the aisle you're on, as far as these sometimes divisive topics. But that's thanks to Mike Lindell. And so continue to support Mike Lindell, who has himself been persecuted over and over and over again. And rest easy on some pillows. So my pillows, I love the towels. They are way better than those fancy hotel towels that you get. Try the towels out if you haven't already. They're great. There's always so many sales going on. You can get the Giza sheets on sale right now. Or, you can be Twinkies with Mr. Lindell and get yourself a Micros necklace. Save 50% on that. Either way, go to mypillow.com, promo code KL, help support this show and support the work of Mike Lindell, who is such a fearless leader. All right, let's hit some economy news before we go. Trump's economy is roaring. Breitbart reports that White House says 6 months into his term, President Trump's policies have crushed doom and gloom predictions, with Deputy Press Secretary Kush Desai boasting President Trump has repeatedly embarrassed the panickids. Core CPI inflation's below expectations for 5 straight months. Factory outputs up 1.8%, and producer prices stayed flat in June, proving the naysayers wrong. Lindell TV report lists a string of wins. By the way, if you're not already, you need to check out lindelltv.com. lindelltv.com, and when you scroll down, you can find all these other articles like this one I'm reporting from, and it lists a string of wins from slashing $9.4 billion in federal spending to securing the border with record low crossings. Summer Lane writes, "You can't keep President Trump down. He just keeps winning," as he pushes tax cuts, energy independence, and a booming economy. And to echo that statement, here is House Majority Leader Steve Scalise.
Well, it's been a very busy first 6 months working with the Trump administration to deliver critical wins for hardworking families across America, to deliver wins on those issues that we all ran on, the things we said we would do if we got a Republican White House, Republican Senate, and Republican House. And of course, the one big beautiful bill really is the epitome of so many of those victories, but that's not all we've done. The president has already signed or has on his desk 31 different bills that have been passed by the House and Senate on the desk of the president, almost all of which have been signed into law. After today, maybe all 31 will have been signed into law to continue delivering and getting our country back on track, reversing the damage that was done by Joe Biden in 4 years. What the Democrats did working with Joe Biden, not just to increase inflation, increase interest rates, to increase regulations and rules that stifled the ability for small businesses to grow. We've been working hard to reverse all of that. And while we are celebrating all of these wins, we are not tired of winning. And the American people aren't either.
We're not tired of winning. But Trump has a Powell problem. Representative Anna Paulina Luna is going after Fed Chair Jerome Powell, though, referring him to the DOJ for possible perjury over alleged lies about the $2.5 billion Federal Reserve headquarters renovation, which she says includes luxe features like VIP dining rooms and marble finishes that he had denied. Yet Gateway Pundit reports Trump officials, including Bill Pulte, were denied an on-site tour of the federal Fed's $2.5 billion headquarters renovation, getting a virtual site visit instead, prompting him to ask, what do they not want us to see? What are they hiding? Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says the Fed is just so not worth it. Watch.
Look, Joe, I think that what we need to do is examine the entire Federal Reserve institution and whether they have been successful. I'm speaking, actually, I'm going to be in the building this evening. There is a regulatory conference that begins tomorrow. I'm the keynote speaker tonight talking about regulation. The Fed as well deals with monetary policy, regulations, financial stability. And again, I think that we should think, has the organization succeeded in its mission? You know, if this were the FAA and we were having this many mistakes, we would go back and look at why has this happened? I mean, look at as you said at the top of this broadcast, there was fear mongering over tariffs, and thus far we have seen very little, if any, inflation. We've had great inflation numbers. So, I think this idea of them not being able to break out of a certain mindset, all these PhDs over there, I don't know what they do. This is like universal basic income for, academic economists.
You're fired. We need to bring that back. We just get rid of them. You're fired. You're not doing your job. We need to get rid of the Fed. Oh my gosh, that would solve so many problems. But maybe this is a little bit of a hint that they're trying to look at a review, an audit, and then maybe we can say bye-bye central bank. Maybe. We can only hope. Meanwhile, the market is booming. Watch this.
Here's a recap of today's market action. The S&P and the Nasdaq both hitting record highs once again as communication services and discretionary stocks led the gains.
That was at the close of yesterday. So let's take a live look right now and see what is going on. Climbing into the green, the Dow and S&P 500, Nasdaq down a little bit, but we're doing just fine. If you want to diversify your portfolio, you can always go to MikeLindellGold.com. That's MikeLindellGold.com and get yourself some precious metals. This is yet another way you can help support the network and support Mike Lindell while supporting your wallet because it is important to have true asset allocation. Get yourself some gold in there. And also while you're at it, you can go to ChristieOilBoom.com. ChristieOilBoom.com. Get yourself an ultimate passive income play. This is a way to invest in energy. At ChristieOilBoom.com. Learn more by visiting that website. All right. Well, we have come to being out of time. And so that is Christy Lee's DC Dispatch for you. Keep it locked into Lindell TV White House coverage. We have live so much more in store. We've got Vanessa Broussard ahead, more Allison Steinberg, so much to report and happening. And you can find the truth right here. Thanks for watching.